So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders, their backgrounds, their successes and their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted that we have with us Andy Nimmo, who's owner at Muddy Boots Nursery. So firstly, Andy, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and Muddy Boots to the audience, what you do and how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, of course, Chris. No, thanks for inviting me to share a little bit. Muddy Boots, we started just about 12 years ago, my wife and I, and we never dreamt that it would grow to the size that it has. When we first started, it was just really Anne and my wife working every hour of the day.
Yep.
I used to go out and leaflet and flyer drop the streets of York where we were first based, and we had a tiny little room that had capacity for 10 children. So, I mean,
Wow.
fast forward 12 years, we've got 4 sites. We're about to acquire our 5th, and
Wow.
we have a capacity combined of just over 400 children every day, and impact, or get to serve 700 families
Wow.
from childcare spaces right the way up to before and after school clubs and holiday clubs. So that whole kind of primary age group. So yeah, it's a bit of a surreal kind of journey when I look back, but it's definitely been one that's been full of adventure and surprises. So yeah, it's been really good.
Wonderful. Well, we look forward to finding out more. So maybe if we just start with maybe just talking a little bit about your background, how you got into business and why this particular one.
Yeah, of course. Well, my wife and I, we didn't have any formal business training or even like experience in that regard. Before I started the nursery, I was working on a hot dog stall in the center of York, selling hot
Right.
dogs to the
Brilliant.
tourists, and doing that kind of trade, which I really enjoyed, as I love eating. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner was pretty much hot dogs for me. So yeah, and then my wife, she was involved in doing care work for a care agency, so going
Yeah.
into nursing homes. And we were both heavily involved with a church and a charity. And actually, my wife was leading the parent and toddler groups. I was assisting a little bit with the finances, nothing complicated, some kind of basic maths things. And then we were kind of tasked with the idea to explore, starting a children's nursery,
Yeah.
and originally for the charity. As things kind of evolved, they decided they didn't want to go ahead with it, but they said we could kind of take the research and make, start something ourselves, which we did. And we started, and we didn't actually, even though we were preparing to start ourselves, a couple of sisters approached us, and they knew that we were about to start our own nursery in the area, and they said, well, look, we only started a few months ago, it's not been working out the way we thought. And so we actually we acquired that operation for a very low sum, I think of maybe £6,000 up front, which was my student overdraft, and whatever spare change we could find pulled together, and we kind of had got started really. So yeah, it was definitely, it was an opportunity which we kind of did a bit of a kind of a cost benefit analysis on risks, and we kind of thought, well, look, if it all falls apart, I'll get a bit of a night shift at Tesco stacking shelves, I'll be able to recoup the few £1,000s we invested. We didn't have kids at the time, we didn't have much responsibility, so it seemed like a worthwhile risk. And yeah, it was very, I guess, exciting at the time. We involved all our family in trying to do up this room that we could convert into a children's nursery. We had a friend who built a kitchenette out of school desks, because we started off in an old disused secondary school that used to be just at the edge of York Manor School, not the new one on Millfield Lane, but the old one that's now since demolished. So,
Yes.
that was the beginning of our kind of nursery. And
Well,
yeah, out of desperation to survive, I think we had to figure out, I guess, the business principles to grow and to
brilliant.
do something that could, keep the staff employed and the children cared for.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, I mean, when you were growing up, is this the sort of thing you foresaw yourself doing, or did you have other things planned out?
No, 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 not at all, not at all. There was absolutely no ambition to start a business. My wife, to be fair, she does say that when she was a kid, she always dreamt of starting a children's nursery, which, if I'm honest, I never knew until after we had started it. I
Brilliant.
think it was only a couple of years after she highlighted that to me. But yeah, no, we weren't planning to start a business. It was very much kind of an opportunity that we kind of, we thought we'd take the risk. We were earning very little at the time, so it wasn't like we were foregoing any sort of security or nice lifestyle by starting it. But it's certainly paid off since. But
Wonderful.
yeah.
Really great to hear. And I'm sure you've had challenges. What over time? What are some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome over the whole period?
Yeah, I think probably when we first started, just the need to survive and finding that there were, I guess, sometimes people that were against us kind of growing, developing. We had a fair number of battles with the council because the building we're in was a council-owned building. So at times there was sometimes the threatening of closure because they needed to evict different people out of the building. And so we sometimes had to fight our corner. Probably a very notable one was when we actually experienced a fire on the building itself. It was an arson attack. It wasn't directed to the nursery, but because we're an old secondary school, it was at the back of the school, and it meant that basically all our rooms were completely waterlogged, damaged. So I remember getting the call at 3 a.m. saying, "You need to come. There's a fire at the nursery," and turning up to see, I think, 6 or 7 fire engines having already douse the fire out, and just being a little bit shocked, and probably not really quite having like things had settled in. And I remember saying, I think to one of the firefighters, saying, "Look, I can get my staff here early, an hour early, we'll start clearing up, parents will be arriving, at 8 o'clock." So, and he's like, "No, I'm sorry, this is a criminal investigation now, it's closed." And I'm thinking, oh gosh. Goodness. So that was I think that was the early hours of Thursday morning, and it was just by chance that so we were closed for Thursday, Friday, then it was a half term, so we were actually able to relocate the nursery temporarily for 1 week in that half-term holiday to the new manor school, which meant there was actually only 2 days of closure. And in that week of half-term, we stripped it, we refloored it, redecorated it, new resources, and we, by some miracle, were able to get the electrics back online, the water back online. The heating was a failed situation, but we had to make do with electric heaters spread around the building. And thankfully the council allowed us to open it back up. But then I guess the challenge didn't quite finish there, because maybe about 3 months later, they essentially said, "Look, the building's more or less condemned. We are going to demolish it, and you need to relocate." And I think they gave us at the time an 8-week time frame, which I knew was never going to be enough time to even with like porta cabins, modular buildings, like you need generally 12 weeks.
Yes.
And so Anna, who had already been looking heavily on Rightmove and we'd already been looking at loads of different sites, we'd explored at least 10 or 12 by this point. We weren't certainly burying our head in the sand, but Anna found a property just down the road, which came on the market on a Friday. I remember her waking me up at midnight on that Friday and saying, "We need to view this." I think we got a viewing that Saturday.
Brilliant.
Made an offer on the Sunday, and we somehow were fortunate enough to get a 9-acre plot with a farmhouse and a barn and some stables. And that barn and stables, what we essentially converted into what is now our Popperton nursery. But I do remember clearly, at the time, I think we even showed parents around before we developed it. It was like an Easter, like family fun day, and I think some of the parents were like, "Is this really? Are you serious? Like this is what you expect to turn into a nursery?" And then we made a start, and that was a huge learning curve. I think we budgeted maybe $500,000 for the building, and it ended up costing about 1.2 million, and took twice as long as what we thought. And we had planning issues and challenges, and builders and architects, structural engineers. We had it all thrown at us. So it was a huge learning experience, and that was definitely one of the big challenges. But then probably I guess in one sense, a bigger challenge when we went from 1 to 2 nurseries. Yes. And for us, as a not at the time a particularly experienced business owner, in some respects, or scaling business, that nearly crushed us in terms of cash flow, and borrowing money to do it up and investing a lot, but not really having a grasp. And that was 2019 was probably one of those toughest years, really, in trying to turn around what was at the time felt like a sinking ship. So that was incredibly challenging, but that definitely was probably the making of us as well, in that we finally got to grips with some of all the important business principles of not just delivering childcare, but how to actually build a business. So yeah, that was definitely a big challenge.
Wowzers, goodness, that's something that I'm sure anybody with a business watching would shudder, having to relocate so quickly and with
Yeah, yeah,
so much challenge. It was yeah, and then what you've done, that whole development piece of yeah, that's quite a thing. And
yeah.
looking at business in general, what are some of the things you'd say you've learned that are most significant about growing a business, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, taking a few from that first foray of trying to build a building, one thing, as much as we weren't, I had got no experience in building a project. I hadn't even done an extension to my own home. I'm not a DIY person, but going through that whole thing, I realized that sometimes the professionals, whether that's the architect, the structural engineers, or the different, bodies of people that you're reliant on, aren't always necessarily right. And sometimes it is kind of asking what can seem like a silly question, which actually reveals some, really important information.
Yeah.
And I think, that we were told that we should never change architects midway through a project, but we were kind of forced to, and thankfully we did. And it was the countless challenges where there's almost like there was the professional view, but then actually there was a reality that, sometimes you have to dig a little bit deeper. I remember when we went to the bank the first time asking to borrow money, and they essentially laughed us out the building. And that was very early on, maybe a year or two into starting the business. But then having to grow and having to quickly understand how their system works or their business works, so that you can speak their language, play their game, and then get the benefit from it. But I think we've also found interesting that the benefit of coaching. We've kind of had a coach currently from Action Coach that we use, and that's been incredibly helpful and useful. Because again, when you've got that outside perspective, it's when you can pull on someone else's experience, you can save a lot of pain and a lot of money. And I know that with some of the people we had around us, we wouldn't have been able to get through the journey, frankly, if it wasn't for their support, their guidance, their advice, their wisdom. So having the humility as well to kind of sometimes receive, a different perspective, as much as it is the confidence or sometimes the naivety to push against the established system. But I guess when we went to 2 nurseries, that was definitely how do we operate through things like systems, right? When you can't be in 2 places at once, and how do you leverage other people and their skills and put in robust processes that hopefully people can follow and it succeed, rather than the genius or the kind of the artist kind of skill set being held with the owner or the creator of the business, which I think most business owners we come across probably struggle with it's all about them, and then it's really hard to let go. It's really hard to pass to someone else who's frankly not going to do as good a job. It's going to take them longer, but actually realizing that sometimes your time can be better spent elsewhere and used. So I could speak all day, to be honest, about all the principles that we've probably grown and learned over the period. But it's been amazing.
It's great. It's great to hear, and I think the key thing for, as you said, for receiving help is having an open mind. It's I was told a long time ago, I like the phrase, the mind's like a parachute; it only works when it's open. And
that's it.
It's being open to stuff, because as soon as we start to think we know, we're blocking off any possibility of learning anything else. And
absolutely,
it's great to hear that you're so open. And speaking of coaching, and I don't want this to be a plug for Action Coach specifically, but who are the best coaches you've worked with historically, whether that's business, sport, life in general? Who are the influential people?
Well, I have to give a shout out to Matthew Atkin, who is our Action Coach, and
Brilliant.
He's when we first engaged with him, we're actually in the middle or at the start of our build project. And to be honest, at the time, I think I was so overwhelmed with trying to figure out the build. After a period of time, we kind of disengaged. And then after we finished and we were established, we kind of came actually to BizX conference that Brad Sugars was hosting in the
Great.
UK. And that we kind of reconnected there, and we reestablished then the coaching. But I can remember, I mean, just one conversation we had when we were about to acquire another nursery site, and Matthew invited me to read a book about negotiation, and I would say I'm not at all skilled in that field, but I remember reading Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, I think it is.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. And then a couple of conversations with Matthew, our coach. And because of that, probably weekend of reading that one book that cost £12 on Amazon and a few conversations with our coach, we probably negotiated, in excess of 6 figures off a price that we
Brilliant.
never would have done
Yeah.
had we not, taken that advice or that, shared that kind of, that kind of experience with someone else to kind of say, hey, could you consider this, that, and the other? So, so Matthew's been a huge, well, I think any coach / person who's been in business that you can use as a sounding board, I think is immensely valuable, because it can be a lonely place when you're the owner or you're the business operator or owner that, your employees won't always understand the struggle, the stress, the strain, the weight, the responsibility. Sometimes they can just see the good things, like sometimes the financial rewards, which definitely are not there at the start of the journey anyway. But after 10 years and you start to maybe have some fruit of that, sometimes it can be interpreted the wrong way. So I think anyone who's been in business, I mean, more recently we've definitely found, I mean, so many business books have been helpful that have really shaped how we've kind of done business. One of probably the standout ones when we went to 2 nurseries, and that probably saved our bacon a little bit, was it was called Traction, or the EOS system, the entrepreneurial operating system, and Gino Wickman and his kind of library of books. And that was revolutionary, because while we had kind of tapped into certain kind of almost like the good to great, great, classics of business, and then sometimes the real practicals of, negotiation, for instance, that almost sat in that middle ground of just incorporating a whole kind of, mix of kind of business thought, which really did transform our business in significant ways.
Brilliant. Wonderful. So great to hear, as I say, the openness you have for receiving this information and the amount of learning you're consistently doing. And do you have any favourite quotes or sayings that you catch yourself using a lot, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, one that I definitely have said a lot is, and I think it might be a Brad Sugars one, that's, while you're trying to save yourself a wage, you're costing yourself a fortune, or along those lines. Like, that fear of employing someone else to do part of the work. And it's like, you're worried about spending that money, but the reality is, while you're having to do all these extra jobs, wear these extra hats, it is costing you a fortune.
Yeah.
And I think it's very hard as a business owner, I think, at times, to let go. Divine and things. But I remember when we were changing accountants, and he met with us in our home, and he literally said, "Oh, so it'd be great to meet your bookkeeper." And I'm like, "You're looking at him," and he's stunned. And we've got 2 businesses, a few million turnover, no financial qualifications, but I'm there trying to do the bookkeeping, prepare the accounts, get some reports, and just it certainly wasn't a waste of my time, but there were better people that could do the work in less time and actually produce a far better result that would help me in actually operating and driving the business. So I think we constantly reflect on our structure, but and partly because of that, you're thinking like, where could I leverage someone else? Where am I costing myself a fortune because I've not been able to employ or recruit someone? And that really does stretch the kind of the challenge of managing people, not just delivering childcare or something. It's a whole different skill set. So I'm trying to think of other quotes that have maybe stood out. There's plenty that quite like Tony Robbins. He often says, business success is 80% psychology, 20% mechanics, and that's certainly been probably our experience, that you can know the mechanics, but if you aren't doing it, then you don't really know it. And actually, it's the psychology that often holds us back from maybe fully embracing some of the principles that we might come across in a book. And so, yeah, but yeah,
That makes perfect sense. I think it's very true of coaching as, you know, as a discipline and what we do, because I think people probably come to us because of the wealth of knowledge, experience, the systems, the processes. But I think the greater value in all, is the personal change. It's the challenge. It's the becoming the business owner we need to be, that use the tools to do those things.
Yes.
You know, your first quote about, you know, saving a wage costing a fortune is exactly that too, isn't it? It's been open to that change of how can I get this done. I remember Brad in an event many years ago, and he was, you know, talking about the principle of, you know, never do anything that you could pay somebody else a lower wage to do, which is, I think, your principle. And a fellow in the audience, and the example he said, I've not cut my grass for the last 12 years. I've got something to do it. And the poor fellow sort of stood up and took offence and said, "But Brad, I love cutting my grass." And to which Brad said, "Well, that's because you haven't got a boat." And,
Yeah.
And he didn't mean it to be anything other than you need to open your mind up, because we tell ourselves we like these things or we tolerate these things, but there's always something else we could probably enjoy more, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Andy, I'm really keen to know what you say you'd learnt about yourself through this journey that you've had so far.
Wow. Yeah, great question. I think definitely, yeah, it's been a transformative experience in the sense that, like, starting a business, you know, I probably didn't realize before we started, there was like a loose idea of like, oh wow, on the back of a fag packet on a napkin, we thought this could earn more money than the measly 12 grand that I happened to be earning at the time, selling hot dogs. But it then really did, I guess, create in me, I guess, that challenge, that opportunity to, I guess, meet some of the kind of, I guess, what I'd say, like my human needs, you know. So it gave me like a certainty of like being in control, of thinking, you know what, the success of this business is completely, me and my wife, down to us, you know. If it succeeds, it's like, that's great. If it's failing, it's us, you know. We can't blame anyone else to the left or to the right. I mean, at times you can complain about the economy or a pandemic, but it ain't going to change it. So you know, you've got to start to own what's going on. And that kind of taking responsibility is huge, you know. Certainly how it's then, you know, cascades into every area of life, really. And I think, you know, as we've grown, it's kind of stretched our capacity, going through things like the Build project. Really, what I would say is forged us. You know, there are certain things that you can learn through a podcast, reading a book, through conversation, but unfortunately there are some things you do just need to go through. And going through that experience or through that situation is what really creates the steel or the tenacity or the persistence, resistance to just keep on handling the challenges that, you know, a business owner will always face. And so that's definitely, you know, it's made us into like a robust, you know, set of people in many respects. But the business provides for us certainty, provides for us variety. We have a great team where, you know, we love and we respect and rate, and you know, they're incredible in what they do for the business. And it also gives us an opportunity to continually grow, because I just think so many people are probably not aware of it, but that sense of growing in life and being able to contribute more because of that growth, I think is probably one of the most sometimes hidden things, certainly in Britain, because most people, like, maybe in more recent years, they're looking for the handout, they're looking for what they can take from the government or society or from the job or the boss. But actually, it's like, actually, the more I believe that we find where we can contribute and where we can grow, and it's really where our self-esteem is created. And I think probably doing business has helped, you know, strengthen my confidence as a person, as a parent. I didn't have kids when we started, but I'd like to think, yeah, all the kind of things that we've learned and grown through have expanded our horizon in ways that, you know, when we started, we never dreamt of, you know, employing the number of people that we do and having the turnover and everything else and the impact on so many families. But I now think, wow, what more could we do? Like it's like I'm more excited now about how much change or positive impact we can make, how big that we can go in one sense, in the quality that we can, improve the childcare industry because of how we operate. I think I want more nurseries. I want to raise the bar so that the
Brilliant.
level of childcare in the region goes up, or in any area that we operate. People are thinking, crikey, like they're good. And so I'm like, yeah, so get better, be better than us, and then we'll want to be better than you, and it'll just
Brilliant.
keep spiraling up. And I love how business kind of just it's definitely reframed how I think about a lot of things in life and in the world. But yeah, just very it's hard to maybe define maybe a few points how it's changed us. It's yeah.
But we're clear. I mean, your passion and your is clear to see, and that's wonderful. And you use the word it's interesting because you use the word serve right at the start of the
Yeah,
conversation about that's what you did, and I think it's that service, as you said, rather than the take, it's the give. It's
yeah,
and
yeah,
and it's such a different mindset often, isn't it?
yeah. It's that creating more value than
Yeah,
anyone else is creating.
yeah,
And if we can do that better, and I guess that's another quote that always stuck with me. Actually, now you've said that, is that, and I don't know if it was Brad or someone else, but it was, when value that's created but not delivered is of no value.
yeah,
Value that's delivered but not perceived is also of no value. And so, like that marketing of what are the great things that we are doing, and then going back to what you said right at the start of like, as Brits, we don't always want to blow our own trumpet.
yeah,
I think sometimes we're not great at marketing ourselves and the difference
no,
that is the difference about our company and how we do it.
yeah,
And, we've sometimes hard to kind of frame that difference, but I think
yeah,
it's a well worth exercise for any business owner to think, what is the difference that I do that makes the difference? And do my customers, do my suppliers, do the people out there know that? Because that gives them another reason to choose you or to buy into
yeah,
your product and service. And yeah, we've but we always are thinking, how can we add more value? How can we create more raving fans and people that are going to tell others and share what we do, and
yeah,
hopefully expand the business, being their own sales force for us, really. So we've always tried to look at that and you know
brilliant.
creatively find ways that we can be at the top of our game. We've often looked at who are the players or the best players in our field, and
Yeah,
let's learn from them. So we've connected with great nursery chains like End Family Club based in London, and
brilliant.
they've been very generous with their time and sharing, certain thoughts, ideas, which have absolutely helped us grow and develop and expanded our thinking. When we
Brilliant.
heard their growth plans, where we were like, oh my goodness, ours are like minuscule compared to 180 to 100 nurseries in 5 years. I'm like, wow,
Well,
you're creating nurseries like a coffee shop makes lattes. You've got a whole nother level of systems that you're building
yes,
to ensure that infrastructure can take place.
yeah,
And it's inspiring. But then you also hear of other stories where businesses have exploded. Like Patisserie Valerie, and
yeah,
behind the scenes, there maybe wasn't the stuff. And I think it's hard then as a business owner to sometimes detect the really high quality businesses from others that,
yeah,
I don't know the ins and outs, but it can sometimes be intimidating. Like, my business doesn't look as good as theirs, or it doesn't seem as good. And I think sometimes when you're able to look under the hood, it
yeah,
can be quite encouraging when you hear some of the other stats and data that isn't always aware when you see
yes.
the beautiful picture.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's that. Yeah, it makes absolute sense. Yeah, there is that perception versus reality piece, isn't there? That yeah. And I often find it's really interesting because I think that there's. Yeah, I often ask people. The word that's come up a lot in these interviews is imposter syndrome,
yes,
and I
yeah,
often find people sort of assuming that other businesses are always better than theirs because they can
yeah,
see under the bonnet, as you
yeah,
said, of their own and know that there are
yeah,
those challenges and assume
yeah,
for whatever reason that other businesses don't have those challenges. It's like,
yeah,
oh, they just get on, and it's a bit illogical, but it's understandable.
yes, yeah.
It's a strange thing. So looking forward, Andy, what does the talk about growth, etc. What does the future look like for you guys, and what are some of the challenges you face moving forward, if any?
Yeah, I think for us, it's probably in that 2019 period, we set out or it's continually getting refined. We've reiterated it a good few times, but our dream is to be the most desirable nurseries in Yorkshire.
Great.
In the eyes of the parents, but also the staff that work for us,
Yeah.
and the people that are involved in our business. So for us, it's definitely growth. We'd love to have, for us, our kind of target is loosely 8 to 10 sites, nursery sites that we'd love to kind of grow to.
Great.
I guess some of the challenges with that is sometimes that with the rise in interest rates, the cost of finance. So, we're trying to be a little bit more creative now in how we create the deals, or how we finance them, or how that gets put together. And it's good because it's like anything. When there's new challenges, we've kind of think, right, how do we innovate in this area? And I guess I have to again highlight, say, Matthew Atkin, our business coach from Action Coach. It has been again really helpful, because it's not always, you sometimes have certain thoughts up, but until you talk it out and then it gets reflected back, you can start to think, actually, that's exactly a much better kind of avenue to explore, and I think so. I think our challenges as well is how do we just keep turning up that dial of quality? I guess we in a healthy way, we try and think like, how can we keep raising the standards? We want to be aware of our weaknesses, but at the same time thinking we are committed to to resolving them and dealing with them. But and what are the ways to best create great culture in our teams as the size grows, and helping people have that same passion for the job throughout the organization. So we're interested certainly on those kind of topics a little bit more so. But yeah, it's an exciting time for us. We're really excited about the future.
Really wonderful, really great to hear. And I'm keen to know what you'd say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now, Andy.
Yeah, I absolutely think if it's on someone's heart to do, I would say you should absolutely explore it, and knock on a few doors, try and meet with people that are already doing that business, or anyone who's
great,
walk the walk, and pick their brains, take them out for coffee, take them out for a meal. Ask them questions, find out, because again, there's the dream of starting a business, and then there's the reality.
Yes.
And we've kind of, what's another phrase that I like is that sometimes we want to live, this is an exact quote, but we've got to go through the complexity to live on the simplicity, so Richard Branson lives on the fact, he's worked through the complexity and now has the simplicity, but you can't ignore that there's a whole host of learning and growth that has to go through to the point that you can sit on a private island and run how many businesses with billions of turnover. And so I think for any business owner starting out, I think there is a benefit in not knowing all the bad stuff about all the challenges that you're going to face, because that naivety does help, I think.
I'd agree.
But trying to have that clear purpose, that clear why you're going into it, you need that fuel that will keep you going through the challenges, through the obstacles, through the difficult times, and the uncertainties, and don't be afraid to fail. That humility is critical. I think it might be someone who said, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, and you're not really pushing into new ground. And I think it's true that, that it does require, I guess, a bit of a gladiator to go into business. It's not like only 5% of businesses survive after the first 5 years, and 5% of those businesses after 10. So, the stakes are against succeeding in business, but it's like, I think the achievement when you create value, which frankly didn't exist prior to you starting out in business, is an incredible sense of achievement. And you can't really put a price on that, because as much as the rewards of the salary, the profit, or the equity that's created in an asset value that's created, the fact that you have, or you've created something from nothing, I think is an incredible self-esteem builder of character. And it's a fantastic journey, but do it with people. Don't do it in isolation.
Brilliant.
Great if you can get a coach as early as possible in the journey, and I do appreciate there is a financial cost to that. So it's tough, and I know there's other groups where there's community of business owners that come together and do boards and things, and I think all those kind of things, if you can find a tribe of people or that you've got around you,
Yeah.
even if you're only meeting them once a year, twice a year, I think you can't underestimate the benefit of having a community where you're not by yourself, because it's a hard enough journey as it is.
Yes.
Been trying to do it on your own without someone who can help lift your head up when you're going through those tough times.
Yeah, well said. Bang on, and I think that community it's something we're building at the moment, is the idea of community alongside education, because we, as an organisation, we want to help as many people as we can, and as you rightly say, there are, when we're starting out, it's probably while coaching is sensible right from day one, it's the investment levels can create a barrier. So I know as an organisation, and we're doing that, trying to do that. So final question, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you were able to go back in time and do so?
Oh gosh. Yeah, don't disqualify yourself. Don't a lot of things can be learned, and I think it's too easy to rule yourself out. And someone will have said it. Sometimes when we think of like the vision of being a business owner or starting a business, there is a reality. No, you're currently not good enough for that. But it's the growth, it's the person that you're going to become that will allow you to run, lead, manage, run that operation. I think it's having that flexibility of how you think and your identity, but whatever you do, don't disqualify yourself, don't rule yourself out. And because the majority of skills can absolutely learned, and through practice can be mastered. And so I think, like you say, education, learning, growing is you can kind of overcome, I would say, almost every obstacle in life through that. And it's proven with so many characters. The thing is, we just think they're special and we're not. And actually, I just say, no, the human spirit and that God created is in each and every one of us. And so let's not kind of disqualify ourselves from stepping up or entering in. I don't know, I can't remember the full quote, but is it Roosevelt who said, it's those that are in the pit with the dust and all the kind of stuff, that whether they've been victorious or not, but they've felt it, they've fought it. And I think I have that quote somewhere in our house, and I love it because it's like
brilliant.
It's not the timid souls that have stayed on the sideline. It's those that have gone into the arena to fight the battle, and win or lose, well done, you fought. And so great.
Fantastic. Thanks, Andy. That's been really fascinating and really interesting. I'm sure people watching this are going to take a lot from it. And just anyone that's watching might want to get in touch with you or Muddy Boots. What would be the best way to do so?
Yeah, I guess if it was with me or Anna, with very simple email addresses, Andy or Anna at muddybootsnursery.co.uk. If it was more to do with the childcare element, I would absolutely contact any one of our nursery sites. You can go on the website, www.muddybootsnursery.co.uk, and we always looking for great people to join the team.
Great.
And
wonderful. Well, I think with the passion that you clearly have, you're going to attract a lot of great people. So thanks so much for your time today, and it'd be great to swing by another sort of 6-12 months and just see how things are going for you.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Cheers.